When you look at the statistics, and it's not my statistics, it's Xcube.Bio statistics, there are more than 100 drugs that have been launched in the US in the last 5 years that are not in Europe, right? And we see this number is very constantly growing. If you want to build a commercial organization or commercial platform in Europe, you cannot just translate what you've done in the US. It's very different muscles. You need different capabilities. You need to think about different things and so on. I think we've got 10,000 often, and most of them are not there. And the large majority impacts kids, right, as well. So it's really help biopharma to make the last mile to their patients, They've done many of them done incredible work. The last piece is very important and very often is a bit neglected because it's not seen by this R&D organization. It's not seen as a challenge. But what we try to do is to help them just evolve to the next step and really make sure that they don't miss what we call really the last mile.
This episode is supported by Xcube.Bio. Welcome to Pharma Minds. Today I'm with Pierre-Henri Belin, and I'm very happy to be here with you, Pierre-Henri.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Very happy as well. Pleasure to be in this very famous podcast now. So.
Yes, and to share your story.
Yeah, exactly.
In a few words about what you've done, you worked your whole career at Johnson & Johnson, and you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Made the jump in 2022. Very hand, yes,
yeah.
And with Xcube.Bio, and we are a platform that helps big pharma, little pharma, late-stage biopharma to really get into Europe in the best possible way. So we are a market entry accelerator.
Okay, why I wanted you here today is because you told me since this month, these years, you've met 100 biotechs existing abroad,
absolutely,
out of Europe, and you've discovered that maybe 100 drugs were available outside Europe, and there were
they are
really interesting drugs for patients,
exactly.
but not existing in Europe.
When you look at the statistics, and it's not my statistics, it's Xcube.Bio statistics, there are more than 100 drugs that have been launched in the US in the last 5 years that are not in Europe, right? And we see this number is very constantly growing, unfortunately, and it means just it's as simple as that, is that patients in Europe are not treated the same way as in the US, and they have not access to the same type of drugs, right? And here we're really talking about new molecular entities, so not even biosimilar or generics or things like me too. Yeah.
What opened your eyes to this problem? Because you were in a big pharma.
Yeah.
And can you explain maybe when you realized something is broken and we need to?
Well, yeah, I think it's probably really starting with a small conversation. I mean, the very beginning of this was a conversation I had with a Deloitte partner in healthcare called, his name is Arnaud Ronté, and Deloitte was running something that is called Biotech in the Box, which was a great program helping, advising biotech to really go to Europe and making the best of it and so on. And the reflection we had was that advisory was nice, was useful, but was not maybe enough. Okay. And there was a need for more than that. And it was just this conversation that just sparkled a little bit of curiosity and say,
in a good moment of your life, maybe.
Also, and there is where you ask yourself what I want to do in the next 10 years or whatever, and then. We keep looking at that. This was also in the context a couple of years ago, or even more now, maybe 5 years ago, where you had these very high-profile biotechs coming to Europe, like Bio, like Agios, others, and just running into problems. And those biotechs were first great assets, great teams, very well advised. And so there was really something about the execution, right, that needed to be sorted. It was not just about how do we do things, about the talent of people, and this was probably the way things would happen. And from my experience, I was exposed to a lot of biotech assessing their commercial value for licensing or acquisition for J&J or for Actelion and so on. And I knew there was a lot of these companies around with great assets that were not necessarily a good fit for big pharma, in a sense that they were really on a very targeted disease,
yes.
very difficult to fit in the portfolio, or a technology that was very difficult to integrate into an existing platform.
Okay.
And so, and when we check the numbers, and it's the numbers we're talking about, like 2,000 NMEs and things like this, say, well, there is something here. There is something that should be done because there is this big wave of innovations coming, and this is not easy to get to Europe for a reason you like or you don't like. I mean, you can have your judgment on the way things are happening in Europe, but it's the reality. So, and we need to help there is something to do to execute.
Can you maybe illustrate with an example? You talked about Bluebird.
Yeah, I mean, Bluebird is
or maybe another example. What is happening on the execution? Is it like a non-preparation or too complexity?
No, I think this is probably the translation of what they can do in the US needs to be adjusted and adapted. And what we realize, many people realize, I guess, that if you want to build a commercial organization or commercial platform in Europe, you cannot just translate what you've done in the US. It's very different muscles. You need different capabilities. You need to think about different things and so on. And when you've got this late stage biotech, which are basically very much R&D organization to start with, right? They need to already make a big leap to get to commercial stage, US focused. And this is very difficult for them to make the next level. And so they've got good advisory, but the execution and the planning is not necessarily doing in the right way. Mm-hmm. And typically, Xcube.Bio, for example, or Agios, and great companies. I mean, we met with the executive. They are absolutely great. So this is not a competency. This is about making it work and having the right sequence of execution, having the right strategic angles, understanding in a deep way the stakeholders, how payers would work, for example, or how an hospital or a KOL would work in a different way than in the US, right? And so this is all these things that need to be there.
Okay.
Right?
And you decided how did you start? You decided to propose a simple model for them, which combines execution and financial interest, or
honestly, it was really it was more a curious question to crack at the time. At the beginning, I was in Japan, so I was quite far from Europe, right? And so that was just like, okay, what would be good?
And as you say, many people, maybe think the same, observe the same.
I mean, and there are many people thinking about this. So I was and we had this idea to say, okay, well, if it's a matter of execution, we probably need to have an entity that is purpose built, that is very flexible, something on which you can build and execute something. And so we decided, and we tested the idea of creating what is called in the financial jargon a SPV, a special purpose vehicle, or a NewCo. So creating basically a company in Europe that would be a shell in which we would create and execute the launch and the entry of the partner. And so this was a model that this is what is called a NewCo deal in a way. So we would offer biopharma the opportunity to create with us a small company, a different company, an empty shell called NewCo. Okay. That would be the nucleus of the entity that you need to deploy across Europe. And we would use this entity as an execution vehicle, and we would service and we would provide expertise to this entity to grow it step by step according to a very clean, a very clear execution plan, very sequenced execution plan. And it was just like this idea, and we tested this idea, and this is how we came up to at some point a business idea that was where there is a business, and to a point that we are creating right things. Mm-hmm. But it was really about the beginning about this. I actually came with this idea to Jan Boller, who is an M&A specialist, to say, okay, do you think it's just reasonable to do that from a financial standpoint? And he liked the idea, ended up joining us as a chairman of the board. Okay. So he's one of our founder. We checked afterwards. We see Ludo Holmes, who is a former CFO of a big pharma, also an entrepreneur, and he was saying, yeah, it can work, right? And so we get there, step by step, to the idea that this is something that could be done. So we are not doing consulting, we are not doing licensing, because we are just building organization, and we are building on behalf of an organization according to a plan that we believe is efficient and is mitigating the risk of getting to
in
Europe.
The middle between staying with the biotech plans and going to a big pharma plan.
Yeah, a big pharma or less big pharma plan, but in a typical licensing where you, as a biopharma, you give up your rights to a third party in exchange of payments, royalties, and things like this.
Okay, and then what is the win-win?
So the win-win is so we create something that is on purpose built.
Okay.
So that is just
designed for the European market.
Designed for the biopharma, designed for the type of assets that they've got. And it's very interesting for some biotechs with very specific platform or with very into specific diseases. We are co-owning this entity for a certain period of time, and the biopharma's got an option to take us out after a few years in a predefined performance-based way, so pretty straightforward. And at the end result is that they've got their own entity in Europe that is functioning, that is generating revenues, and so that they can further deploy. They can just add with new assets and so on and so forth.
Understand the market and then.
So we basically cover this kind of very risky periods, in Europe where. From the filing to EMEA to getting to commercial patients, you've got to go through 1,000 steps, right?
It's a regulatory
payers
and payers.
Legal deployments across the fragmented markets. Putting your feet on the ground, recruiting, hiring the right people inside, and so on and so forth. And so there is zillions of things to do. What we when we did the autopsies of some of the biopharma. Getting on their own, and what they've done and so on, we realized that the sequence of things that they were doing was not correct sometimes, and where they were over-investing or overdoing some elements, totally overlooking others, and that the sequence was not necessarily done the right way. Okay. So we got this very very flexible construct that we can play with, and that can be their entry vehicle.
This is very flexible, innovative too. In the point of view of the company itself, and also in terms of what the owners of the company would dare to do, because it's completely new for them. It's a risk from you, but it's also a risk from them. And how is it perceived today? Have you done
fantastic? And you were mentioning the number of biotechs that we talked to, and in the last 2 years, we spoke to. We had a chance to really have sales discussion with more than 100 of them. Different biotechs, and this is extremely. This was surprising, extremely welcome.
The 100 biotechs.
Just this summer, and we are following.
Congratulations, because you have an exceptional view.
But we follow 500 of them, so there is really a lot to do. We probably and I keep discovering honestly new biotechs already phase 2, phase 3 every month, so if not every week. So there are really a lot of players. A lot of potential drugs that could be of help to patients. So yes, we spoke to 100 of them. The model is very, very attractive because we are. It's very well adapted in this kind of VUCA world we are in, very, very uncertain world, because we offer to bring the resource, to bring the money, to build something.
To
share the risk and to cover the risk, to bring the expertise that they don't have, to bring also the bandwidth, the brain time they don't have to put that. But we maintain their options along the way, right? And the options to take over the business to drive then the business moving forward.
Okay.
So this is really appreciated. We see a lot of CEOs in particular who were at the beginning of their business, and they've got it's really hard for them sometimes to give away to a licensing organization something that they spend years and years to develop, right? And so here they stay in control. We are a temporary partnership, so we are vanishing at some point once we've done the job, but we've got skin in the game with them also, because we are investing in Europe and for them.
Okay, and how is it going today? Have you already?
So we progressed a lot of companies. We are closing one, our first one. Very soon. I cannot just give all the things out, and we've got 3 or 4 that are really on the short term, and it's very exciting because they are very exciting assets in a sense that it's very innovative. We see, it's for patients, it's going to be great, and so on. So, really good things.
What I like,
just to tell you, the model I think is interesting in a sense that it's also, I would say filtering out. It's maybe a bit strong, but incentivizing the type of company with R&D with a second asset or second indication. They like particularly your model because they know they're going to have their own structure for the second asset.
Yes,
and so on.
yes, that's it.
And you've got
it's a long-term plan.
You've got this kind of company with a platform with a lot of science. It's not necessarily the one shot you can find or say that you've got one asset they want to monetize quick. This can be also great. This can be also great assets sometimes. But here we've got this kind of very passionate people, and and that's adding the motivation to work along them and get their science to the final goal, right, to the patients. Ultimately.
Yes, and I was wondering, is it useful or can it be useful also for European biotechs who want to address the European market and we start with the science?
That's interesting. Yeah, I think our initial assumptions was that's going to be a US play because this is where you've got of course a lot of innovation. Well, not needless to say, but also you've got a lot of this gap that exists in terms of a cultural gap on the way things should happen. But we realize also that European biopharma were also potentially interested by this model. And actually not just them, and we may talk about this later on, but we see a more and more evasion, and particularly Chinese companies with great potential and are also interested in this model.
Yes, we talk about this. But what I like about this model is we are you said we are in a moment where innovation is rising a lot, exploding, and we are in certain worlds, and we didn't talk about this, but also budgets to pay for drugs, for innovative drugs in Europe are limited, and then it's the first step in the cold water from you, to decide to do something new, to propose something, and I like the idea because you no model exists, and you have to create. Someone has to create, and just try. And what is maybe the perception of the payers? What could they win about this? What is the value for them too? Because it's also an ending point.
Of course. Well, I mean, if I think that the payers are not, they are not evil, right? So they want value, and so they want to make sure that what you bring to the market is going to be really a value for the healthcare system overall, for the patient, of course, but also in general for the healthcare system. So if you bring an innovation that is a real innovation, that you've got the right endpoints and you've got the right demonstration, what we see is that payers are inclined to pay for the right things, right? And of course there are budget constraints and so on, but and you can get there. What we also propose on the other side is really to be as lean as possible, to make sure that we are not shedding money away, that would not be driving more value to patients. And so our model is very also driven towards this. But we fundamentally believe that, again, if they are good assets, they are willingness to pay. And when you look at a difficult conversation with payers, it's often because the added value to the existing standard of care is not great, or that the data that have been generated to demonstrate is not a fit, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to avoid in also in our process.
To anticipate,
yeah. To anticipate, and we like to talk to companies that are phase 2, so that we don't do NewCo at this stage or whatever. It's very light, but we can help them just reflecting on the last phase of their clinical developments to make sure that they deliver, they produce the right data set that makes the conversation with EMEA in one sense, but also with payers a better one. And so, yeah.
So you can, nearly assure they will go somewhere.
And put them in. I mean, there are some misconceptions. I mean, the dynamics of pricing in the US and Europe is so different, and we cannot blame the biotechs to look first at the US market, because this is what makes them their investments viable. Unfortunately, the US is really so important now in terms of financials, so they have to do that. But Europe is important as well. I mean, it can still be a sizable amount of their business. There are a lot of patients. There are more patients than in the US. So this is a go-to market.
Yes, but I think it's also, we didn't talk about these actors, but also for big pharma to understand how launch can be done, maybe in a more lean way, and get rentability with different expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I've been in the large pharma, and we turn down sometimes assets that could be interesting to license or to acquire because they were too small, because the cost of the platform is of the operating elements of the big pharma is there, and you just cannot make it work for a small population of patients, and most of the time, right? And we see that, for example, I mean, now the big pharmas tend to step away from the orphan disease area because it's very difficult to operate, and they go into the GLP and all the things that are fashionable at the moment. There is, I mean, there is a lot of innovation in smaller spaces, right? In those, I was looking at the statistic. I think there are more than 9,000 diseases with no treatments, and so 10,000. I think we've got 10,000 orphan, and most of them are not there, and the large majority impacts kids, right, as well. So
they talk about tsunami of innovation,
and so and so how do you get there? I think the biopharma platform are fantastic to deploy, large scale innovation. I mean, COVID vaccines or immunologics and things like this. But for small things, you need something different, probably. And this is what we try to crack here. For very specific precision medicine, you probably need another way to look at things that is more flexible, that is more purpose built, and leave options on making sure you can adapt to the market conditions.
Yes,
right?
Indeed, it's very complex, but that's what makes this interesting. Yeah. And can you maybe in one sentence explain your mission, so we can understand really what?
Well, bring innovations to patients and really do
targeted innovation.
So it's really help biopharma to make the last mile to their patients. They've done many of them done an incredible work. Just deploying from phase 1 to phase 3, or even preclinical to phase 3, and so the last piece is very important, and very often is a bit neglected because it's not seen by this R&D organization, or it's not seen as a challenge, right? Well, you probably heard this, but you hear a lot of CEOs saying, my product is so good, I don't need commercial.
It's going to be it's science.
It's going to be sold like hotcakes, right? Which is never happening, of course, because this is a bit more complex than that. But okay, you cannot blame them to be there, right? What we try to do is to help them just evolve to the next step and really make sure that they don't miss what we call really the last mile. So the little piece of work, I mean, that is not so little actually, but the little piece of work that needs to be done from the end of your data set or the generation of data to the real patients having real access and being treated in real condition.
Yes, then it means you make maybe, I don't know, if it's a few years, 5 years with you.
Yeah.
Partnerships means they would have 2 years of commercialization with you and you do the
regulatory. We go, I mean, typically we go 4 to 6, on average 5, you're right. And that's leave us time to, of course, going through this regulatory process and payer, and also deploy across the continent. Because I mean, the other thing about Europe is that it's so fragmented and you cannot just do one launch. And this is another concept that is quite difficult from a US standpoint. It's not one launch; it's just like 27 or even more launches that are happening over 2-3 years, right? And so, we have time to do that. Once we are there, it's time for us to exit.
Yes, this is what they plan to do. Okay. Yes, and how is it perceived from the financials in the US too?
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting. I think the fact that the US market is now a little bit more uncertain, right?
Yes,
I mean, it's still the top priority overall. We see more and more investments vehicles or funds, things like this, interested in looking outside, just probably to diversify and making sure that they are not just relying on the US. We had this experience of talking to funds, which when the partners were telling us, it's the first time I see how business works in Europe, right? So we never really bet on this. So it means that the investment that they've done in some of the biotech were just against the US potential. Okay. So initially they were not interested, but they start to be interested.
Okay, start to just open their eyes.
Yeah. And because also they realize that some funds got dozens of those biotechs that are now reaching, phase 3. And the question is, what do we do? And so they cannot find necessarily a license. They don't want to do a license. They want to go on their own and so on. And so there is this question is coming, and they see that there are more and more of these companies. And this is a step that is important because it's a step of monetization, right? So it's a step where the investments start to return, right? And so they are very interested with our model. We've got a lot of traction on this, which is nice because it helps us just really planning for some fundings and so on. Mm-hmm. The difficulty we have is always to showcase a new model, right? And so it took us a little bit of time to get people acquainted to that, that they see the benefits and so on.
Yes, to trust it also.
But we've got a fantastic connection now with this investments world. That see the value and see the need for that. When you look at, we said there are something like 2,000 assets. When you look at the number of operators that are able to bring innovation in Europe, as a whole, not just counting some very sub-regional, there is less than 100. There's probably 80. So you've got 2,000 assets, 80 players. Okay. There is something wrong, right? You need to have more options. And I think most of the funds understood that, and the investors understood that. Okay. So, yeah.
Yes, and it's also a way to present Europe as an open market and with solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
instead of
problems.
Instead Europe.
I mean the reputation of Europe as a pharmaceutical market is not great. But sometimes, honestly, for a wrong reason. And it's there are things that are done in a very right way as well. So it's just a different market, and this is what we try to explain. Is say it's not worse or better, it's different than the US.
I think it's more complex.
Yeah.
Then you need more time to accept.
I would almost disagree with that. I think I would agree in a way, but I would almost agree. I think the entry is more complex. And so getting in there, the market entry, so getting into the country, into Europe is complex, and it's much more complex than the US, where you you've got a very free market, so the access is
we have
very
one
good.
payer after that,
but then once you convince the payer, you've got also what is called universal coverage in most of the countries. So you don't have any question asked. If there is a prescription, there is a fulfillment.
Yes.
In the US, you can launch and you can pretend you launch, very easily because it's free market. You set your price, you go, right, and it's there. Okay. But you've got along the way so many things to do to almost sometimes just to convince patient by patient, right, the payer to pay, right. So there is a lot of complexity that is coming progressively in the US.
Okay, it's different then.
And it's just what I said. I mean, it's different muscles, and this is where I think we believe that the issue is, right. It's capabilities are different. Yeah.
Okay. Again, yes, Europe is seen as more regulated country.
Is,
yeah, and
fragmented.
Yes, fragmented, and maybe the cultural also aspects, but
and there are
the
cultural
US
aspects. You're right.
More commercial. Yeah. Okay. What if a launch fails? Who pays?
So we take the risk, right? Yeah. Well, financially, we take the risk to complete failure, right? Yeah. That exists.
The worst case.
This is the worst case. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. We've got a lot of control on that, and the way to do that is really to sequence your investments, and this is what we do, so that if you lose, you don't lose too big, right? And
it means you can stop. You can change your mind in the middle.
We've got some. In cooperation with our biopharma partner, of course, there are ways to step out, right, if we need to. But we found this launch, right, the market entry and the deployment. So this is our financial risk, right, overall. I think, again, we try to control that by sequencing our investments, by being, lean, flex. And
you will learn on the way, and
you learn on the way.
Failing rate.
Exactly. But they are. I mean, the biotechs which went alone and succeeded in Europe, right? They are some of them flourished, right, and they did great. They had all this kind of discipline of sequencing, of getting step by step, and moving from one success to the other, and learning from the failures and adjusting afterwards, and so on. And this is really the way to go. And again, very different from a US launch, where the point is really to go strong, full in a first step, right? So that's what we try to do. But
yes, and I start to imagine yourself as a group with different companies, and then it means you don't have limitations for competitive risk or anything, because each one is in silos, and so each one can operate, because it's I think something really special about this industry is it means different companies, different business can be into the same house.
That's true. I mean, what Xcube.Bio is primarily a platform. So a platform that is creating companies. So you're right. Each of the partners got their own companies, and we can operate them separately, and so on. But the platform is there to be able to scale, right, and to be able to have a lot of these companies. We don't think it's. I mean, we think it's probably a better approach in the current world, where we've got precision medicine, you've got very targeted assets. The focus is important, and more than the cross.
Yes, I would like to talk about your 100 interviews you had, and to give an insight from someone, not from a position paper, about these companies, what's happening, where it comes from, and what do we talk about? What is the?
I mean, maybe can start with with what we observed is their problem, basically, which was not necessarily as clear when we started, right? Because you say, okay, maybe they don't have money, maybe they don't have, willingness or something like this to go to Europe. What we see are three things that are really stringent. First is they don't have the bandwidth. This is as simple as that, is that they are, into so many other things that getting 5 minutes of brain time in Europe is just like a struggle, right? Okay. And so this is the primary things I would say is that they know it's great, they know it's important, they know they should do something, they know, but they don't. The organization is not fit, and we see that in small, but also in larger biotech is the same, right? Because there are so many other priorities or things that are perceived as other priorities that is there. So that's the first thing. And the second one is not necessarily a matter of money. It's a matter of allocation of resource. And because when you, again, speaking to those CEOs and the CBOs and chief commercial officer, it's so hard to put $1 in Europe when you've got also an opportunity to put $1 in the US organization or your commercial organization or in R&D. Okay. And they even if they've got this kind of plans in mind, if we've got the money to do that theoretically, it's such difficult things to say, okay, yes, we're going to put this money into that to launch in Europe. And probably based on the fact that they don't know how Europe works in most of the case, and this, okay, that's the way it is. And that the perception is, and what we were discussing earlier, is that it's complicated, it's going to be a pain in the neck, and so and we're not sure about the return because the prices are not good, blah blah blah, and all these kind of things. So
easy to wait. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so they say, yeah, we should. You're right, we should. But getting to the point where they put some resources to do that instead of doing something else is very difficult. Okay. So we see the struggle even in very well-funded biotech. That was the interesting thing. So we are not just dealing with companies who are short of cash, right?
Yes. And the third one?
The third one is the cultural. We alluded to that. Okay. Is the cultural bit again, where of course we are. I mean, and again, I'm talking mostly about US here, and we are Westerners, right? So there is a kind of a sense that we think a little bit the same way, we operate a bit the same way, and that the US market and the European market are very close, right? Actually, they are not, and so this is creating a lot of misconceptions and a lot of things, because the assumption is that we are very close. I mean, and interestingly, the perception that we have and when you deal with Chinese companies, for example, or Japanese companies, you know that that there is a cultural gap, and so you take care of that. And interestingly, I think it's easier to interact and to really get into these questions or these questions of differences with Asian or Japanese companies than with the US, where the assumption is that we're probably the same, right? Which is not true. I mean, of course, MEA and FDA doing a lot of common stuff. I mean, but that's it, right? The rest is so different. And,
okay, and for Eastern companies.
So I mean, we had a very interesting conversation with and we hope that we can get a deal with a Asian company, Chinese in particular. I think there is really a big tectonic move at the moment, and in the biotech area, where Chinese organizations are really coming to a point where they are not just creating, Me Too's or generics or things like this. They are really driving innovation, and they do that in a very professional way, very neat, very clean way. We had access to a few data room, and we had a chance to look at some data, and it's very well done, honestly. And so it's going to succeed, right, at some point. And it's going to compete with probably the US and European biotech. They've got a very different view that is a bit more long-term, I would say, overall, where they are a bit less concerned by reaching the patients as soon as possible and something like this. Of course, they want to, right? But they are really conscious of building on the long run.
Yes, they invested since 20 years. And
exactly. And they've got a long-term perspective that is interesting. And so they are also very interested in our model for this reason as well, because they see us as a kind of a step to step into Europe, and then they've got their own business in Europe, and then they're fine, right? But the conversation will be much more what's going after that, what's happening after the partnership, rather than what is happening during the partnership, where when do we get to patients, when do we really get a price, and so on and so forth. And so we've got way more conversation on how to build, what's going to be the impact on the longer run, and so on and so forth. So this is really different, different conversation. But they're gonna be there for sure, and they're gonna be there for the right reason, because they're gonna bring, the innovation and really nice assets.
Then maybe the political situation is maybe changing some biotech strategies.
Yes, yes, of course. There has been a lot of things happening, particularly since the beginning of the year with the new U.S. administration. That are touching us indirectly, and I think tariffs is not touching us directly because for us it's bringing things into Europe, so it's not selling something to US, but it's creating uncertainty. All the things that are going on with the FDA, all the shakeups in the FDA administration and so on is creating uncertainty. The conversation on what is called most favored nation, which try to align the prices with Europe and the US, or try to get the European paying more for innovation. This is also creating questions and so on, and it's delaying for us. It's delaying the decision in general, but it's not necessarily cutting out the discussions to and cutting out everything out of Europe and say, we've got some companies telling us, okay, we probably don't go to Europe because it's too complicated now. It's not, but it's not too much of that. And then for the Chinese, it's also very interesting because they or the Chinese or Japanese, but the Chinese in particular, they want also to not just invest into the US, but also they understand that they also need to invest into Europe, right?
Yes.
And so we've got this an increased interest, I think, of Chinese companies to step in on biotechs, to step in Europe. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is this, in Switzerland here, there is this BioGene model, the B1 now model, that is also a good blueprint for many Chinese-based companies.
And why did you decide to found the company here, to ground the company in Europe here?
Well, it's a good question.
Is there a reason or no?
Yeah, there is. Beside the fact that some of our founders are Swiss, and I used to live in Switzerland for a long time, but we believe that Switzerland is really a very good combination of business features. I think it's very stable. This is business friendly. This is all the things that is known, right? But what is very important is, I think, if you look at Europe, this is the largest hub of talent. Period. There is no other competing area, at least from a commercial talents or late stage talents, I would say. And so our model is about creating businesses. So it's about hiring also people. It's about having those competencies to have excellence in-house. And so it's very important that we are in the middle of that, right? And that we can just tap into this fantastic ecosystem of Switzerland. So, I would say first is probably the talent pool, and second is probably the business-friendly elements.
And talking about the talents you need, can you explain a bit?
We've got the way we work is twofold actually. We've got our own platform, so Xcube.Bio, which is providing services and it's providing also expertise to set up the new codes, to set up the new entities and so on. And for that, we've got a network of talents. We've got now probably close to 50 experts in our networks in all the functions that you can imagine. And we need to have a very comprehensive and thorough network here because we are dealing with companies with very specific technology. So when you've got a radiopharmaceutical company, you cannot just get your random CMC or your random regulatory. You need someone who knows this, right? Okay. And so we've got it's very important for us to have this talent pool. So first thing. The second element is that when we create the NewCo, we need to populate the NewCo. As in general, we create an entity here in Switzerland that is going to deploy across Europe, but we put the headquarters here, and so this is where we need to have people with the commercial excellence, expertise, again in disease areas, in various disease areas. So we go from neuroscience with something in very specific neuroscience element to rare oncology or rare disease and so on. And you need different profiles, and you need to have this kind of diversity around you to be able to ramp up your organization. And I don't see too many other countries with that level of diversity and the breadth of talents that exist in Europe, at least. So,
to be able to have to deal with Europe. Okay. We still have few minutes. I would like to talk about the future. What you think is the biggest threat of this system, this European system, European?
That's a broad question.
Yes.
I struggle to answer this question, to be honest, because we don't see that as a threat, right? The way we try to think about it is as a given, right? And this is the way it is at the moment. How do we make the best of that? And how do we, play with the system to be able to reach the patient in a financially viable way, right? For biotech. So I would say. I would say, I mean, of course, the difficulty is going to be the budget and the prioritization of the budget of healthcare systems in Europe, right? Where do you you've got a limited budget? Where do you put your efforts, right? Do you want to go into very specific disease that may be a bit more expensive, but say very neglected or very difficult to treat things, or are you going to go into or invest your money into early stage or just primary medicine or these kind of things? And we see this is not always very good. We see in some countries that there is a lot of money spent on analgesics and first line things and reimbursed very, very well, right? And then it's putting pressure on the last cancer treatments that is probably going to save the life of someone, right? Okay. But a few, right? Okay. And so this is this unclear prioritization that is probably a threat, I believe. The fit for precision medicine, if you want, at the end. So are we going to get into a world where we take care more of this kind of very difficult things?
Okay, unclear, you say. Okay.
So I would say that.
The strategy is unclear to what we want to. Okay. What's interesting is you're in the middle of also innovation and science and a product.
Yeah.
Then it's also maybe a way to invest.
Yeah.
In science and to push science. For you, it's maybe difficult because you bring innovation from abroad. Yeah. But
I mean, we bring solutions for patients, so we bring solutions for healthcare, right? I would hope that there is more of European innovations coming, and it seems that the European institutions are getting there slowly, but they probably need to muscle up, of course, the investments in early stage biotech in things like this. Where we are focused is really probably a bit more on again the delivery to the patients and how we have at the end of the day
what is the door for you?
A more healthy population, or at least some people are really treated better, right? And here, there is already a lot to do because there are those late stage assets that are ready, and there is really a tsunami that is coming. So the question of the prioritization is going to be very acute at some point in payers discussion and in budget, political discussions in some countries, because either you accept to not fund some medicine and lag a little bit behind, which is already starting to see. We start to see in some countries, right, lag a little bit behind in terms of innovations, and you leave some patients, and you leave patients without solutions that exist elsewhere in the world. Or you make the decisions to really fund that, making sure that the access is preserved for assets that are well demonstrated with adding values, and then you do maybe a little bit less on other things, right, that are less life-threatening, less serious. I don't know how to qualify that, but there is this shift, right? And probably flexibility is going to be very important to do. And this is not always, the most evident features of healthcare system that are not that flexible. And so, that's where the tension may come. But we are here we see ourselves as here to help, right? Not just to fight. It's really about how we can do the best with this system and try to make a
yes, but it's also interesting because in front of you it's the big pharma model, which is not flexible too.
I mean, they've got their merits, and they've got such a. I mean, I don't want to blame the big pharma because it's not about this, but they've got merits in bringing this large scale innovation, and they do that.
And it was a moment to make
in a great way, but there are other things to do, right? And there are all these smaller disease areas where flexibility is probably more important.
The point is in front of problems, what do you propose? Can you adapt?
And so we see so many drugs that are getting really close to market, and at the moment there is no plan to go to Europe, and that's a shame.
Yes.
It's among the advanced market, this is the biggest patient market, if I may say it like this, or the patient pool, right? There is there is much more patients than in the US alone. So you cannot just, in my view, you cannot just go without, right? You have to be there. You have to be in Europe.
Yes. And how do you see your company in 5 years?
So, good questions. With a lot of newco, a lot of partners, we are building the platform to be able to scale. So that's really about. It's not just about having one or two or something. It's really just being able to go lots. There are also other geographies that we're interested in. I'm probably biased because I lived in Japan for some time, and I think the Japanese market is also, in a way, share common things with the European one. It's very difficult to get in, right?
Okay.
But once you're in, it's a fantastic healthcare system. Again, very, very well organized, very well funded. You need to step in, and it's difficult for multiple reasons. So that would be, I would love to really duplicate or just extend this model to other geographies like Japan, Australia. We are lucky to have a partner in Canada as well that is already helping us there. So,
and do you think it can be also, an interesting model? Okay, maybe to try for big pharmas in the beginning of the launch.
Yeah,
I don't know if you try, but to improve and to.
We haven't yet, but it's a very nice idea. I think there are in the portfolio of many large pharma drugs that are not prioritized for the reason we talked to. That's not big enough, blah blah blah, and so on. Where you can imagine that we can be a partner of this biopharma and just put that on the market and just give it back at some point, right? So it can be a model as well, a complement, I would say.
Okay, now we will conclude with the advice you could share. Maybe which advice you can give for European policymakers?
Wow, policymakers.
Yes. Because it's a place where we try to understand each other.
No, of course. I think be flexible.
Yes, give a strategy.
Be flexible. Make sure you do the right priority in terms of funding.
You explain
and that's whatever the priorities are, that is clear, right? And that we can have a conversation on the right basis, right?
Okay.
And so. I would say that if I have to say something.
Which advice you want to you could give for a biotech CEO?
would tell them, don't neglect Europe. It's a great market. It's a great place to also learn for them, and because they are good science, they are good doctors, there are a lot of patients, and so be prepared and grow the right muscle to get there, and we are here to help if need be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. It was very nice.
Thank you. I think what's interesting is what you're doing is bigger than just building a business. It's maybe trying to potentially save lives.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Thank you for saying that. I think the thing is that I never woke up in the morning just saying, "Hey, I'm going to build a business." Right? It was really just kind of cracking a challenge or cracking these questions of how we can do things differently, better, and so on. Yes. So, and that's what we're trying to achieve still. And I'm lucky. I have a lot of co-founders and partners that are thinking the same way. So
yes, what I like is trying to be skin in the game in this process.
Yeah, we have to.
If our auditors want to get in contact with you, where can they go?
Well, we are active on LinkedIn, so I'm happy the LinkedIn page is there. I can give you my number, and we are very easy to reach. There's no question, and very active. And we always value also having contact with experts in Europe that also talents that also help us just being stronger, being more relevant in the market.
Okay, I give you a question like this. What would you need today?
Well, we need always more funding. That's one. But that's the
easy one.
This is the easy or the most complicated. It depends. What we need as well is really talents and more talents. What we are always looking for very specific profiles, because we are coming across biotechs with very specific needs, right? And so all the people with experience in the market, whatever the experience, we are always very keen to connect and to if they can help us, and if we can help them, that's the way to go.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. It was great to share this story about connection, inspiration, and creating a positive legacy. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on future episodes, and talk to you soon. À bientôt.